documents, apparently Barack Obama, when he was an Illinois senator, was part of the development of this level 3 biosafety lab in the Ukrainian city of Odessa. My only question here is, how come it is 16 biolabs in Ukraine, A, and all of them apparently deal with very lethal, very dangerous pathogens or viruses? Why Ukraine? Why 16 of them? Okay. And why so recently? Farshid.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you very much. I believe that Mr. Putin and Mr. Biden will no longer dishonor themselves with losing vehicles, prestige, and soldiers, and something like that. And they are operating the status of war right now. If you can see, the balance of power is shifting to balance of threat, and this is the fact of threat. Because I believe that this war is not terrible enough for world to be unified against Russia. And this is another scenario is written before. And they are doing this scenario very preciously. So the fact is, this undercover or underground labs are in Ukraine for many years. But the using of chemical weapons is another subject. Because we are the doctrine, war doctrine of Russia is now applying is the Gerasimov, and Gerasimov is legitimizing Russia to use any kind of mass destruction of weapon. So this is the fact. If somebody pushed Mr. Putin to start this war and to involve in this trap of war, definitely for the next scenario, they will push Mr. Putin to use chemical weapon. And this is another scenario, because look at the scenario, look at the region right now. Mercenaries from all over the world is coming to this scenario, from the Ukraine part and from the Russian part. The fact is only the hazardous is not chemical weapon, is using the mercenaries, and they are moving the ethnics and using the threat of using the chemical weapon would expedite the evacuation of the Ukrainian from their homeland. And this is the fact. And we are now facing a threat, not a chemical weapon attack, but the chemical weapon attack is inevitable in coming days. Yeah.
Some questions come here, and I think that the important thing, I'd like to go to Aaron Mehta, is not to look at this in terms of who's right, who's permanently right, and who's permanently wrong. The problem happens when a complex situation like this, we say Russians are permanently bad, Americans are permanently good, or Americans are permanently good, or Russians are permanently bad. As a developing news story, Aaron, my question is, why does the Director of National Intelligence, Avril Haines, refuse to divulge the details of America's role in the biological defense research program? If it is not about weapons, then why the secrecy?
Sure. So first off, obviously, I'm a journalist. I don't speak for the American government, wouldn't claim to speak for the American people who can barely speak for, in one voice on anything these days. Look, the Pentagon has a number of programs which are classified. The American government has a number of programs classified, as does the Indian government, the Russian government, the Iranian government. This is a typical thing with governments across the world, where if a program is classified, you can't talk about it in public setting. That's just a legal rule. So Avril Haines isn't going to get up there and say, well, since you asked, Senator, here's everything that we've been working on, and here's all the details. She legally can't. She would go to jail. So that's one thing to keep in mind. The other thing to keep in mind is just going back to an earlier question you had, Arnab, about combatant command and what that means for the military. A combatant command is a regional area. It doesn't mean a thing that's used for combat. It means essentially somebody who is in charge of monitoring the region for the military. So there's a combatant commander in charge of the U.S. Indo-Pacific relationship that India falls under, quote unquote, that combatant commander. So in this case, as one was saying earlier, this is a situation where we have Pentagon has many programs about biological defense and biological safety because they're concerned about what happens if a biological weapon is used against American troops. That's the kind of research that the Pentagon has very openly conducted for years. It's why when there was a big smallpox outbreak in the last decade, the U.S. military was able to help out with that. So that's a kind of typical thing that happens. I can't speak to these 16 labs in detail. It's not something that I know, frankly, from my experience, a lot of in depth on. I do know that, again, if we're talking about something that was signed in 2005 as a statement, if something is publicly signed in 2005, nobody's trying to hide anything.